Right, you lot, and it is time for the big one, the Premier League table prediction for 23-24 season. My God, it's already coming back. And I think we're in for a really exciting season, because I think last season a lot of teams underperformed and a lot of teams overperformed. I think we had a lot of shocks and it was impossible to predict it last year. This year I think it'll be a bit more straightforward, hopefully. Then again, I say that, I know it won't be the case. But last year was a mental season, and I think this year there's going to be a lot of teams that are competitive. I think there are at least 9 or 10 teams that realistically should be aiming for Europe this season. And with the expansion of course, the Champions League competition, so potentially this year 5th place will be in the Champions League next year. So that would mean 6th and 7th for Europa League this year, and 8th would be the Conference League this year. So, that is it. So let's get to this, shall we? 20th, Sheffield United. There's always one promoted team that comes up and you look at them and you think they do not stand a chance. Sheffield United, I know they shocked the world a couple of seasons ago, they somehow got 7th, but the big issue I've had with Sheffield United is their owner. He's reluctant to spend, and when he does spend, it's not been what they wanted. They feel like they've given up already. It feels like Sheffield United have already thrown the towel in. They've had a disaster of a summer so far. And I look at that squad and I just don't see how they can survive. One of their strikers is Ryan Brewster. In 2023, I doubt he's starting for them, but that just screams championship to me. I'm sorry, you guys don't stand a chance. Now, we all looked at Bournemouth last season and thought they didn't stand a chance, and maybe Sheffield United could pull off a miracle, but for me, it's 20th. 19th might be a bit surprising considering this is such a mainstay and big club over the last 10 years. For me, it's Wolves. Look, I know what you're going to say. Well, Lopetegui's a great manager, there's no way he'll go down with them. This guy is getting sacked or either leaving by Christmas because you see him and he's frustrated. Wolves have had the worst summer transfer out of any team. They've lost the likes of Ruben Neves, Moutinho, Nathan Collins, Connor Cody, just to name a few. And who had they brought in? Nathan Redmond? It's not good enough for me. Lopetegui is frustrated. I don't see where the goals are coming from. They've also lost Raul Jimenez, who I know last season was absolutely useless front of goal. But the big issue with Wolves, and it has been for some time now, even back to when Nuno was doing great stuff with them, has been their goal scoring. They've been really unlucky in a way because, Neto had that massive injury and so did Jimenez and they were vital for them, but they're just not the same players anymore. They've lost a massive player in the midfield. They haven't really replaced him. They've lost a lot of depth at centre-back and experience at Connor Cody. It is going to be a disaster of a season. 19th, Lopetegui will be gone by Christmas. I don't think I've been more sure of anything. Now, 18th for me was a close one. There were 3 clubs that I think are in this relegation battle and are the next 3 that I put. And those 3 clubs are Luton, Everton and Fulham. And I went with Fulham in 18th. Okay. I think the thing with Fulham is not necessarily the team that they have, but it's the attitude around the club. It's the, it's the kind of feeling around the club. And that's very low at Fulham. There's uncertainty over Mitrovic's future, and he said he's never going to play for the club again if you lose him. I know they dealt without him for 8 games last season, but that's a major loss. Marco Silva as well, I don't buy him as a manager, I really don't. He's a failed Watford and Everton coach who had 1 good season. This team screams of second season syndrome. They don't really have the youth in that team. The likes of Tete, Willian, they're all players further on in their 30s in their career. I see a disaster of a season for Fulham. Marco Silva will be the first sacking of the season and he will be gone by the end of September, mark my word. 17th, Luton Town. You may have thought I've lost my mind with this Luton Town prediction, but for me, I know they've not had the best kind of summer incomes, but they've not exactly got the budget for that, have they? I look back to Blackpool's 2010 team under Ian Holloway, who were one of the greatest Premier League teams ever. based off, yes, they went down in the end, but they gave it a real go. And I think Luton are going to be a difficult team to play. I think they're going to be up for every single match. And I think when you've got sleeping giants like Wolves in this league, or someone like a Crystal Palace or West Ham, or, you know, the Everton, these teams that have been here for a long time, I think Luton will be well up for it. I think Luton are guaranteed to at least beat one of the big six. Most likely to be Arsenal. Or Liverpool away. And I think Luton will just about do enough. It will be very close. It will come down to the penultimate game week. But I do think Luton will escape in the end. 16th for me is Everton. Everton is the Birmingham of this division. They are slowly sleepwalking their way to relegation. But I think Sean Dyche, people do overrate like the transformation that he made last season. When he came in, they really weren't doing much better than they were under Lampard. I mean, he kept them up in the end, and that's what he was brought in to do. But for me, I think Dyche will have a decent season, and I think he will play similar to how he played at Burnley, but he won't do fantastic. And I think he will survive the season, but they'll just be really boring to watch. Neil Maupay, is he still there? I don't really keep track of Everton. If he is, they've not really got the striker, and they've not really got the budget either. They've brought in Ashley Young, who I think is a good signing, but apart from that, it's just a bit meh for them. But I think they have a few quality in there. So, but they've lost other people, you know, they've lost Damari Gray, Anthony Gordon, like they've lost a lot of that kind of youth bright spark. So it's going to be a dull season, but you will survive, Everton. 15th, Nottingham Forest. I've seen people complain about Nottingham Forest this season, which is quite funny because everyone complained last year and they signed everyone and your nan. So, for me, Nottingham Forest are just going to have a steady season. I think they've kept on to their big players. Brendan Johnson, I think he'll probably stay now. Gibbs White. And I think that's vital for them. Anthony Elanga is a decent deal from Man United as well. I think he's shown flashes, especially under Ragnick, that he is a quality player, and I think he'll do wonders for them. And he'll be the Eze of this season. I think he's going to break out star, in my opinion. Steve Cooper, I'm shocked. Like, I'm so happy they started him last season. I think he will be able to avoid relegation again for me. I think Forest will have more organisation. I think they've got rid of some of the deadwood now. Some of those signings that didn't exactly work. Jesse Lingard is gone, which is a great thing for them. So yeah, that's Forest. 14th is West Ham. West Ham. You've had the worst. You've had the second worst transfer window. Like, I would say it's the worst, but you've sold your star player for 105 million. It's August and you've not bought anybody. What is going on? They only want to buy English players for some reason. I don't know what that's about. And because they've got the money, everyone's doubling their price here. Man United wanting 50 million from McTominay is just insane in my opinion. Like, just anything to get rid of that guy. Conor Gallagher for 60 million. Like, Polinia for close to 90 million. It is insane prices being thrown around. And I think West Ham really should not have played their cards so early. Like, they should have maybe kept on the low. Let Arsenal like kind of bid and Man City bid out for Declan Rice for a few months, then let him go in August. Like, there was no reason to immediately after that cup win say you were going to sell him, because that means everyone knows you have the money. But I think West Ham do have enough quality in this team to get mid-table. I think Picasso will have a big year for me. Scamacca's going on loan now, but I think Danny Ings and Antonio are decent mid-table strikers. You've got just decent players in there. You've got, you know, the likes of Agard or the likes of, you know, Ariola in goal. Like, you've got enough there to be mid-table, but I don't see it. You going there far in the Europa League, I'm going to be honest. I'd be surprised if you get out the group. 13th, I've gone for Bournemouth. Bournemouth favourites with the bookies to go down, but I do not get it. Everyone in their nan cried when Gary O'Neill got sacked, and yes, it was harsh, but Gary O'Neill was pretty much guaranteed to flop this season, let's be honest. Like, it was a miracle, but let him go out on a high. Don't bully Gary, like, that's the thing. And Ariola, to bring in a coach like him, you may ask for his experience, but he was able to take a second division team to a Copa del Rey final. Like, he knows how to work with a small club like Bournemouth, and I think he is a quality manager, and he will make Bournemouth look exciting. You know, they've lost Lerma, yes, but they've got a bit of astute business in. And they've brought in their manager early. They've given him a whole pre-season, and they've given him time to bring in the players that he wants. I think this will work and pay off for Bournemouth in the end. 12th for me is Burnley. Now, I know people are going to laugh, and I've seen people criticise, will Vincent Kompany be able to play? And I think they will get off to a shaky start. They'll be in the relegation zone at the end of September, for me. But I think he will be able to eventually adapt, and he'll have to change his tactics. But I think he is one of the few ex-player managers, like big ex-player managers, who I actually back. You know, you look at Gerrard or Lampard or Parker, or even Vieira, you're kind of, rolling your eyes. But Kompany I think he does have it, and I think there's something about him that will work. And so I do back him. And I think he will have a very solid season with Burnley. I think Trafford, will really prove his youth, and people will be screaming for him to start over Pickford by the end of the season. And the disrespect Pickford gets is insane for me. Right, 11th is Crystal Palace. Enter the most boring prediction. I'm sorry, Crystal Palace, but this will be a good season for you, I guess. But next year will be a worry. Eze is not going to be here next season, I can guarantee that. I don't even know if Elise will be there at the end of this window. Check the Corey's been linked with Liverpool moves and stuff this season. And your manager is Roy Hodgson. Look, I get it. He will not relegate you. You will not get relegated under Roy Hodgson. But what is the future? What is the plan? You just keep Roy for 2 more years, and then what? At least with Vieira, you had something to kind of progress you forward, and I think the Vieira sacking was very harsh for me. But they're going to get 11th. It's just boring. 10th, I put Tottenham. I'm not even joking with this prediction. Look, and Postecoglou, I actually really like as a manager, and I think the disrespect some people say that, he's not done it at the top level. This guy has got as much experience as the likes of Klopp and Pep, honestly, with his longevity. You might not know the stuff he's done in Japan, but he's worked absolute miracles. His job at Celtic fans can't speak higher of the guy. I think he will do well in the Premier League, but the problem is the Tottenham squad. You have got players in, and I don't know how much Postecoglou has been involved in transfers. I doubt he is, but Daniel Levy doesn't know what he's doing. Okay, James Maddison was a good signing, but you've not brought in a centre-back. That centre-back group and full-back group, the entire back line, Romero's the only one with any semblance of quality, and even he had an appalling year last year. Your keeper you've brought in, I don't back. To be honest, Lloris is still there, so will he be the number one? Who knows? Then you look at that front line. I think Son will have a better year this year, same with Kulusevski. Richarlison has to be better than last year. He just has to be. But the problem is Harry Kane. They're probably going to keep Kane now, and I think if you keep Kane, you might be able to push. But I just think Kane might leave at the end. I think someone will buy him in the end, and I think that will punish Spurs. Because I'm sorry, you've got one of the best strikers in the world and you're Tottenham, but you can't replace him with one of the best in the world. You're not that kind of club, you're not on that level at the moment. I think they're going to need to give Ange a couple years, because you look at Klopp in his first season, he was only able to get 8th. You look at Pep in his first season, he didn't win the league, Or you look at Sir Alex, he may have been sacked nowadays of how long he took, and they need to give Postecoglou a project, they need to give him time, and they need to give him a few windows to really build his team. Because at the moment, they are honestly a worse squad than Aston Villa, and I'm not even joking. 9th, I've gone for Brighton. Look, yes, it's 3 places less, but come on, Brighton in Europa League when you've lost... Caicedo has to go. He's gonna go, you can't keep him. He was begging to go out in January. I think Brighton... they brought in João Pedro. I think he'll be an unbelievable player for Brighton. He'll be the big one. Enciso will have a big year. Matoma. You've still got Lewis Dunk and Webster at the back. I know it's a massive loss to lose Colwill, but I think they should do enough. You've still got Solly March there. The goalkeeper situation is a bit of a problem. I don't rate Robert Sanchez or Jason Steele. So I think they need to look in the goalkeeper department. But for me, top 10. And I think they will actually get to a final of the Europa League. I see them being a team that will kind of be an underdog. I see De Zerbi doing well. I just think it's too stacked this season. I think they will get 9th, just based. But it'll still be a great season. 8th, I've gone for Brentford. I think people are overrating the loss of Ivan Toney. Like, yes, taking 20 goals out of any team is going to be massive, especially for a mid-table team like Brentford. But you look at Mbomo and Wissa, and I just don't see a problem. I think that team is so well built, so well drilled. And the thing is with Brentford is, apart from Toney, there isn't a standout man. Every player in that team is important, and every player plays a role. Whether it be me and Pinnock at the back, whether it be Mbomo and Wissa, like every player is important in the Brentford system, and I see them getting a Conference League spot. Thomas Frank is a great manager, he's doing a great project there, and I just see them getting better each season, and I think 8 for me for them. Now we're moving on to the Big 7. Well, the Big 6 and Aston Villa. Notice how I didn't include Tottenham in the Big 6 there, right? I'm joking, you're still in it, Spurs. 7th, Man United. Bias, you're going to be thrown at me. Look, I think Man United's summer transfer window has been really overrated for me. Mason Mount for 55 million. I've seen Man United fans celebrating because they didn't have to pay 60. You're paying 55 million for someone with 1 year left on his deal. That's embarrassing. I think Mount will be a decent signing for them, but I just think there's going to be so much pressure on him and people will call him a flop immediately. Similar to Anthony, which is so annoying for me. I hate the disrespect to Anthony. I think he's a really solid winner. And that is as a Liverpool fan. I think Anthony will have a big season. But for me, I just don't back Højlund. And the big problem with Man United last season was scoring goals. They built their season based off their defence. Varane and Martinez were almost flawless at the back, and Shaw and whether it was Delo or Wan-Bissaka were always great. De Gea, he made his mistakes, but he actually got the Golden Glove. Like, he was really important to them. And you brought in Onana, who is probably a top 10 goalkeeper in the world. Like, the disrespect, he gets, people don't put him in the top 10, I don't get it. What he was able to do at the highest level last season was sensational. But I think the issue with them is going to be the goal. Marcus Rashford, for me, is one of the most overrated players in the Premier League. He had a purple patch last season and people were saying he's Ballon d'Or potential. Like, that's insane for me. I think the issue with Marcus Rashford for me is his attitude, his laziness. Yes, he scores goals, but what else does he do? He's not exactly a playmaker. He doesn't pass. He shoots from 30 yards out. And I don't think he'll have the same kind of season he had last year. Anthony and Jadon Sancho, I actually do rate both of them, but I think they don't score enough goals themselves. But for me, Højlund is the big risk, and if this goes wrong, I could be the laughingstock next year. Højlund could be one of the signings of the year, but he's just got flop of the season written all over him. He's an unproven guy. He scored 18 career goals, and they're spending 60 million on him. And I get it; they need a striker. Like, Weghorst was embarrassing. But I think Ramos from Benfica would have been a better choice for them personally. Or even they should have really battled for Harry Kane more than they did, I think. If you're going to be spending 55 million for Mount and 60 million for Højlund, you might as well go in for Harry Kane, in my opinion. And in my opinion, they should have kept De Gea and brought in Kane and Mount for me. Or a cheaper midfield option, like an Amrabat, for example, or a Lavia, because I think they needed that focal point. I think if they had Harry Kane, they could be competing for the title this year with how strong that defence is. But Højlund is going to be a flop for me. 6th, I've gone Aston Villa, so they're going to be a Europa League team along with United. For me, Aston Villa have had the second best transfer window behind one other we'll get to later. To bring in people like Tielemans, Diaby, and the big one, Pau Torres. I can't believe they've got Pau Torres. Like, this is the guy that I would take at Liverpool. Like, I can't believe we weren't all over Pau Torres of how bad our backline is when you take Konate and Van Dijk away from it. Pau Torres is a world-class player and is going to be in the team of the season next year. Mark my word. I think Unai Emery is a top 5 manager, potentially top 3 in this league. I think only really Pep and Klopp come close to him, maybe. You could argue maybe Pochettino, and that's about it for me. Ten Hag as well, potentially, but I think he's unreal. His job at Villarreal. His Arsenal time, people were so unfair of him. He was never going to do well taking over from Wenger. Just look at David Moyes. But yeah, it's going to be a big year for Villa. 5th, I'm going for Chelsea Football Club. Look, before you laugh at me for putting Chelsea in a potential Champions League spot, you have to look at last season. Newcastle, Man United and Arsenal were 3 teams that I didn't have in my top 4. You probably didn't have in your top 4. Most people had, what was it, Man City, Liverpool, then Chelsea or Tottenham in some order. Most kind of that order. And it turned out 3 of them didn't even make the top 4. So I see a shock here with Chelsea. I see Pochettino having some big manager bounce. I think Mudryk has to be better than he was last year. Sterling will definitely improve. I think the guy's definitely, like, people talk about Sterling like he's 30 odd. He's only about 26. Like, he's going to come alive this season. Cucurella has to be better. They've got rid of a lot of dead wood, sent a lot of people out to Saudi, and it's going to be a big year. And I don't think they'll quite make the top 4, but 5th for me. 4th for me is Liverpool. I think most people are predicting Liverpool to have a bounce and to return to the top 4, and I do see that, but I don't see Liverpool challenging Man City and Arsenal. And my problem with Liverpool is A, squad depth, and B, their defence is still an issue for me. I think the issue with Liverpool is that you've brought in 2 great midfielders. I think Slobodsky and McAllister, 2 amazing deals, but you've lost 2 starters as well in Henderson and Fabinho. You've also lost Milner, who played a fair bit last season. You've lost Keita and Ox, but who's really going to notice? Same with Arthur Melo. And I think they need a DM. We've still not got a defensive midfield, and we're about a week and a half out from the season. It's embarrassing. The centre-back situation, Konate, injury record is quite poor, and I back Konate and Van Dijk, Robertson and Trent as a back 4 with Alisson, but the problem is, if you lose Konate, you lose Van Dijk, you're bringing in Matip or Gomez. Matip, I think if you put him with Van Dijk, he's okay, and Gomez is one of the most frustrating players to watch. Like, he can have a world-class performance, and then 3 terrible ones, and then another world-class performance. He's got no consistency anymore, unfortunately. But the great thing about Liverpool is their attacking line. I think they probably got the best attack in the league. I'm going to say it. I think name a team with a better group of attacking players than Mohamed Salah, Cody Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz and Diego Jota. That is an unbelievable 5. Like, you go for Man City, Erling Haaland, okay. Then you've got Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva. And then you've not really got anyone after that. Arsenal, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Trossard, Nketiah. Like, I think Liverpool have the best attack. It's just that defence and squad depth which will hold them back. 3rd, Newcastle. Everyone seems to think that Newcastle are just going to fall off this season because Liverpool and Chelsea are back, or because, can Eddie Howe do it? We'll have a Champions League at the same time. People are saying Eddie Howe will be gone by the end of the year. I don't see it. Sandro Tonali is a great deal, and I've seen people say, well, will he really want to play for Newcastle? He seemed AC Milan born and bred, and I've seen people also say, like, Italians come to the Premier League, does it always work? I think Tonali will prove people wrong. Harvey Barnes, I've seen people complain about this transfer, but I think he is a proven Premier League winner who will get you 8 to 12 goals a season. He's just what they need, and I think they will maintain their Champions League status. And I think there is maybe one more surprise to come Newcastle's way as well in the signing department. Okay, the top 2. Did I go Man City or did I go Arsenal? 2nd, I've gone for Man City. I've done it again. This is back-to-back years where I've said Man City won't win the league, and they probably will. But let me just, give the reasons why they might not, right? I don't want them to win 4. No one's ever won 4 in a row. Fergie couldn't do it, Wenger couldn't do it, Mourinho couldn't do it, right? No one's done 4 in a row. Second of all, you have lost Ilkay Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, and I know that they're in their 30s, but they haven't really brought in a Mahrez replacement yet. I've seen links to Elise, but I think they don't want to spend too much on him. And Kovacic is a good buy, but he's not Gundogan for me. There's also the hangover from the treble. How do you go again after winning the treble? It's impossible. Like, they played pretty much every possible game last season in 3 competitions. Like, you've got to be burnt out. I also think that squad is more thin than it was before, and I think, you've lost a lot of key players. Sterling, Jesus, Zinchenko, potentially Cancelo now. You've lost Mahrez, Gundogan, potentially Bernardo Silva. And I just don't think Pep can do 4 in a row. I don't think he'll do 4 in a row. For me, the first is Arsenal. Arsenal have to win the Premier League this year for me. Like, last year, people say they bottled it, and they kind of did in a sense. It was embarrassing, the way they fumbled at the end. But they had such a strong run, and what they've done is they've only gone and upped. The bringing of Timber was incredible. Like, I think the big issue last season was when Kiwior and Rob Holding weren't Saliba. I think Timber will be a backup centre back and won't play right back. I don't see this whole thing of like, you can play right back too, but he was known under Ten Hag as a centre back. Kai Havertz, I think people do forget what he did in the Bundesliga, and I don't think he'll be a great signing, but I think he will put in a few shifts, and I think he'll look a lot better than he did at Chelsea under the many managers. He never really looked good at Chelsea, didn't he? But the big one is, of course, Declan Rice. You were brought in. Yes, they spent 105 million, but I think it was worth it. He's a guarantee. I think he'll slot in. He does it for England. He does it for West Ham. He'll do it for Arsenal. I think we'll see a new side to Rice. I think they've kept Partey for a reason. I think Partey, Rice, Odegaard will be in the midfield 3. I think that's better than Man City's De Bruyne, Rodri, and Kovacic, maybe Bernardo Silva. Maybe not better, but it's at least on par. I see Arsenal doing it this year. Although in the Champions League, you're going to have De Lasse class. You're going out in the round of 16. I'm calling that right now. But yeah, I think Arsenal will win the Premier League. Right, so that is my prediction. Please tell me if you disagree. If you want to write why you think Sheffield United will win the league, please tell me. Right, I've been Lewis. Goodbye.